Yes, I'm rooting for the Dodgers. They lead 3-2 in the series. Milwaukee next two games. Still not over. Rooting for them, yes. Not because I live in Los Angeles, because the Boston Red Sox just made the World Series. And I like tradition in sports. I like Fenway Park. I think it's going to be cool to watch two guys who could be MVP, J.D. Martinez and Mookie Betts in the World Series at Fenway Park, and Ben Affleck in the crowd, and Matt Damon in the crowd, and a historic Fenway Park, and one of the great pitchers in baseball, Chris Sale, and all sorts of history and pressure. I've been to Fenway Park. It's awesome. I've also been to Dodger Stadium. And L.A. at night in October looks amazing. And I get Clayton Kershaw and Yasiel Puig and Manny Machado and Justin Turner. Yes, I want that more than Craig Counsell going to the mound for the 11th time playing an analytic chess match. I'm sorry. It's nothing against Milwaukee. I root for Aaron Rodgers to get the Super Bowl over Blake Bortles. I'd root for Aaron Rodgers to get to the Super Bowl overall, but about five guys. There's 5 or 6 guys I'd love to see in the Super Bowl. I'd love to see Brady again. I'd love to see Russell Wilson again. I'd love to see Drew Brees again. I love Drew Brees. I'd like to see Andrew Luck in one. I'd like to see Aaron Rodgers in another. I would choose Milwaukee and Green Bay in a Super Bowl over 90% of the NFL teams, but I don't want to watch Milwaukee. I don't want to watch Milwaukee in October. It doesn't take me anywhere. It's too analytic. It's too many. Greg Counsell was a boring player. He's even worse as a manager. I'm not into analytics. I'm into stars. That's why I watch sports. I watch Michigan football and Ohio State football and Nick Saban and Tom Brady. I'm not looking for analytics. I didn't like math in high school or college. I don't like it in my sports. Don't get me wrong. I get analytics, but I don't want to talk about it all day. I want to watch Kobe in his prime and LeBron in his prime and Manny Machado and Clayton Kershaw and Yasiel Puig and Mookie Betts and J.D. Martinez. I don't want to watch Craig Counsell walk to the mound 13th time. I don't want to watch middle relievers. Listen, if you get invited to a party, I'm just going to speak for me. When my wife invites me to a party, the first thing I say is, well, who's going to be at the party? And if it's nobody I know, I'm like, pass. If it's people I know, then I want to go to the party. Isn't that the way you operate, guys? I don't want to go to parties where I don't know anybody. I like to go to parties where I know people. I know these people. I know Fenway Park. I know Dodger Stadium. I know Clayton Kershaw. I know David Price, who had a great night last night. I know Chris Sale. I know Dodger Stadium. I have no problem admitting what the truth is. By the way, a Dodger World Series with the Red Sox on Fox is going to get a better rating than anything with Milwaukee. So, yeah, for my company, it's great. But it's also because I know their players. By the way, David Ortiz works for our company. He's a former Red Sox. He freaks out every time the Red Sox win a big game. He was freaking out last night. He's freaking out all the time, and that's going to be fun to watch, too. Yes, there's David Ortiz. So, yeah, I have no problem with it. When I get invited to a party, by the way, Milwaukee, your middle relievers are awesome. They're awesome. You have the world's best middle relievers. Knock yourself out with that. Miller Park's one of the loudest stadiums in baseball. Josh Hader's amazing. But if you're giving me people I know at a party and people I don't know, it's not real tough for me. It's not real difficult. That's why I'm going to watch Michigan football this weekend. Jim Harbaugh. I didn't like him with Brady Hoke. I like him with Jim Harbaugh. He's a rock star. Okay, mostly in the NFL, this is the way it works. Dallas Cowboys go to Washington and take on the Redskins. In the NFL, mostly, we think we know who the good teams are, and we think we know who the average teams are, and we think we know who the bad teams are, and you know what? I think we're almost always right. There is one exception, and that's Washington. The Redskins are the exception. They're better than you think. They're actually a good team, but they've had a series of bad breaks. Let's go to 3 years ago. They made the playoffs. They were 9-7. In the better NFC, they made the playoffs. Then the following year, they were 8-7-1, and were in the playoffs until week 17, and, oh, by the way, lost 4 one-possession games late. And then a year ago, they were 7-9. That's no good. Oh, no, actually, they were good. They went to Los Angeles early and dominated the Rams. I was there and watched it. They pushed them around the field. Jared Goff, the defense, the offensive line. Then they went to Seattle, and they beat Seattle. And that was early in the year in Seattle, when the Seahawks were healthy, and they beat them too. And then what happened to Washington? The strangest thing I've ever seen. Every single player on the offensive line got hurt. They had 36 different offensive line combinations last year. I look it up. I don't know how that's possible. They must carry 20 offensive linemen on their 55-man roster. They also had 23 different players on the injured reserve, which is about 3 times the league average. They fell apart. And, oh, by the way, this year they're healthy again, and they thumped Aaron Rodgers, and they just thumped Cam Newton. They're good. I'm not saying they're great, but this is a good roster with good players, and Alex Smith doesn't turn it over. They're fifth in total defense. They've always been good at home. The Cowboys are seemingly never good on the road with Dak. And I'll make a prediction here. In about 5 to 6 weeks, starting this weekend, Washington's going to start winning a bunch of games. Then they're going to go to New York and beat the Giants. Then they're going to beat Atlanta at home. Then they go to Tampa, and they're going to beat Tampa. And then they're going to beat the Texans at home. I think Washington's going to go on a 5-game winning streak or a 6-game winning streak, or they're going to win 6 of 7 and 5 of 6, and you're going to look up, and we're going to be into late November, heading into Thanksgiving or coming out of Thanksgiving, and the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Redskins are going to be on the top of the NFC East. This is a good football team. It's not a great football team. It's not New England. It's not the Saints. It's not a great football team, but it's a good football team. 3 years ago, playoffs. Last year, battling for it, and until they fell apart. And this year, Aaron Rodgers, Cam Newton, two of the best quarterbacks in the NFC, beating them both. Yes, they were awful on Monday Night Football against Drew Brees. Anybody ever play badly in New Orleans on Monday Night Football when Drew Brees is setting an all-time record? That kind of smelled like, real quick. I like them. I like them a lot. I think the Cowboys are in trouble. Here's Joey with the news.
No. Herd on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
The team that is definitely in trouble is the Cardinals, losing 45-10 last night. Blowout loss to the Broncos.
35-3 at half.
Yeah, it was a disaster. Well, Steve Wilkes said it was premature to talk about any changes yet. I guess he slept on it and changed his mind because we have some breaking news. A change has arrived. The Cardinals have fired offensive coordinator Mike McCoy. Byron Leftwich will be filling in for him. And this really isn't surprising when you look at the Cardinals' offensive ranks through their 6 games. Points per game, they're 31st. Passing yards per game, 31st. Total yards per game, 32nd. Third down conversion percentage, 32nd. Time of possession, 32nd. And rushing yards.
And by the way, the offensive line's not great. But in fairness, the Jets' offensive line's not very good. And there's not a lot of great offensive lines in this league.
You can't blame it all on the offensive line.
I'm not, but Mike McCoy is hyper-conservative. I got nothing against him, but very rarely do I call out like coordinators. Like coordinators are guys that want to get head jobs. I root for those guys. I said this 2 weeks ago. It is so conservative and lacks so much creativity.
Right.
It is a dead offense. This move had to be made. And again, Josh Rosen is, I'm not saying he's a superstar, but
he's not this bad.
By the way, Jared Goff looked bad for a year too.
Right.
Okay, he's not this bad. This offense needs new life, new thoughts. And by the way, Byron Leftwich, the former NFL quarterback, is going to get the job now. The word is Byron Leftwich is going to go from quarterback in the NFL to head coach. People say he is really has the potential to be a very good coach. So this is a move that is not long overdue, but it's overdue. Keep your eye on Byron Leftwich as a coaching prospect in the next 5 years.
Well, get his opportunity now. I mean, look, when you invest in a rookie quarterback like Josh Rosen, you have to put the right pieces around him. And obviously their season is pretty much lost at this point, so making a change like this to at least benefit him for this year and his development is important. Next, we were just talking about this. The Cowboys' offense woke up in a big way last week, laying a 40-7 beatdown on the Jags. But much of the Cowboys' problems have been pinned on Dak Prescott, which is something Jerry Jones is not having. He told USA Today he's long-term. Anything we need to see, I need to know, I see with him. He's not a quote-unquote bus driver. He's a weapon, and as mobility diminishes on a given play, then you'll pick up where he is with that great decision-making with the mind he's got. So I guess you know where Jerry stands on Dak Prescott.
Yeah, no, he's on. Now, it should be noted, he's paying Dak Prescott $700,000 a year. When Dak Prescott and his agent asked for $25 million with these numbers, it's really easy for me to say, I love our intern. That intern is, I got this intern, I love him. But if the intern came to me and said, I want $200,000 a year, I'd be like, I hate that intern. That intern is no good and he's selfish. When you're paying a quarterback $700 G's, of course as an owner you love him. He's won you a lot of football games.
For a very low price.
Everybody loves cheap help. You know what I mean?
But he did say he loves him long term.
All right, we'll see. When his agent asked for $29 million a year, I want to see how much. Goulet, you're a Cowboy fan. what do you think he'll ask for salary-wise? He's going to, if you look at his record, he's going to say, I get $25 million a year.
Well, if you're his agent, you're saying, look, he was 13-3. He's never had a losing season.
Thank you. By the way, Kirk Cousins, 9-7. My guy's 13-3. So, I mean, I'm not saying. All I'm saying is, when somebody walks through a door and demands a lot of money from you, even if you're friends, you pause. You pause.
Sure. But I mean, if your friend is consistent, I don't know. I don't think Jerry's going to move on from him. Finally, the Lakers dropped their first game of the LeBron era, 128-119, to the Portland Trail Blazers last night. And as we talked about earlier, LeBron has never won a debut game with a new team, so he understands it takes time to make and he made a very interesting comparison last night.
Not as fast as you guys think it's going to happen. It's not. I always kind of compare it, to like instant oatmeal. It's not that fast. It takes a while for the chemistry to get to where you can close your eyes and know exactly where your guys are.
We live in a very instant gratification society.
Yes.
We are very impatient as people these days.
Yeah.
This is not something that I think is going to happen overnight, and I don't know that many people do think it's going to happen overnight.
No,
I think fans are probably overreacting to it.
Well,
as you said earlier, they definitely need shooters.
Oh yeah, that's not.
But it takes time to develop chemistry.
I will say this for the Lakers. The Philadelphia 76ers, Joy, they had a nickname for their thing. It was called The Process, right? And when you give something a nickname, it kind of feels like Saxonville.
Well, then you have to live up to whatever your nickname is.
So it's called The Process. By the way, The Process, Sam Hinkie and all these geniuses, they whiffed on Okafor. Nerlens Noel got hurt. Markelle Fultz is a bust. They had multiple busts in this process. The Lakers have not given their nickname a rebuild. I'm going to tell you something. They don't have a single bust. Kuzma can play. Ingram can play. Josh Hart is shockingly good. Lonzo, again, he's rehabbing.
Right.
Don't go crazy on Lonzo. Lonzo can play. I'm going to tell you something. The Lakers, every single draft pick can at least play. But they don't have a nickname for it. The Process has 4 busts and counting. The fans went crazy in Philadelphia last night when Markelle Fultz, a shooter, hit a 3 and the crowd erupted. That tells you the bust.
Well, we're going to react to every single LeBron game this year also.
Right.
And it's one game. And look, that's not a bad way to come out. The Trailblazers are a good team. Damian Lillard was insane last night, especially in the last 4 minutes. That's a solid team. It's one loss.
It's in Portland. They've won 18 straight home openers.
Exactly. So you're going up against a good team with solid bets. That's no shame there.
Yeah, Joe Taylor with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
Steven Jackson, 14 years in the association. No BS with this guy. Brings it. No BS.